Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 405 for the 24th of July 2015. Richard Saunders here with you from a very nippy, chilly Sydney, Australia. And I'll have you know I've reached level 10 on Pokemon Go. I know that's not as good as some, but actually I am finding it fun. Whatever else people might say about it or think about it or complain about it or love it or hate it or whatever it is, it's fun. I've had some fun chasing these things and losing battles. I wonder what the next generation of these games will be like. But you don't want to know about Pokemon Go, or maybe you do, or maybe you're doing it right now as you're listening to the Skeptic Zone. If you are, good luck. What's coming up on this week's show? We're going to kick off with the Raw Skeptic Report. Heidi Robertson from the Northern Rivers area of New South Wales, looking into the claims and the online activities of one Pete Evans, known as Paleo Pete, who is a TV chef. A TV chef. Lately, he's been in the news because he's been making comments about sunscreens, casting doubt on sunscreens, which seems to be a little bit odd. As you will discover with Heidi, Pete Evans has been making all sorts of comments about lots of other things. Paleo Pete Evans. Included in this report, you'll hear Skeptic Zone reporter and president of Australian Skeptics, Iran Sagev, and a clip featuring Dr Brad McKay, who you have heard on the Skeptic Zone before, famous for being the doctor, or one of the doctors in Embarrassing Bodies Down Under, the TV show. And Dr Brad appeared briefly with Pete Evans on Nova 96.9 radio here in Sydney. And thank you to nova96.9.com.au. Heidi Robertson, the Raw Skeptic, to kick off this week's Skeptic Zone. And then following that, we have a story about homeopathy from the Courier Mail, and with some comments by me and some other reports. And it's interesting because the report revolves around a homeopath selling homeopathy. Bear with me. Because the newspaper in question had the pills tested and discovered that they were nothing but sugar. Yes, I know you're shocked. I know you're gobsmacked. Imagine that. Something the skeptical community has known for years and years and years suddenly makes the news when a newspaper reports it. Well, that's good. I'm glad they're reporting it. But the whole angle is that, oh, wow, look at this. It's nothing but sugar. It's quite amazing to us because what else did they expect to find? Homeopathy being sold as vaccination. That story coming up in the middle of the Skeptic Zone. Then to round off the show, Maynard's spooky action. Maynard is totally on tour with the Totally 80s show. I think it started in the Gold Coast, and then came to Melbourne and Sydney, Canberra, Perth, Adelaide, Hobart, 2 nights in Melbourne, back to Sydney next week for a couple of performances in Newcastle, featuring such acts as the group Berlin, Take My Breath Away, Men Without Hats, Safety Dance, Martika with many songs, including her hit Toy Soldiers. It was a great show. I was there the other week, as Skeptic Zone listeners will remember, doing some work for the tour, doing some background work and some video production. Maynard is having an absolute ball on this tour, being the MC, performing to packed out houses. Good stuff. But luckily for us, Maynard found some time on tour at Perth Airport, I think, to ask some of the performers on tour, do they indulge in rituals and superstitions? How many actors do, I'm led to believe. It's like sporting stars and sporting people. They have lucky items they carry with them or whatever. So Maynard will ask a few of the people on tour about backstage rituals and superstitions. And I'll put a link to the tour in the show notes, as people in Sydney and Newcastle still have a chance to buy tickets for the show. Stay tuned to the end of the show, where I'll be talking about a story I hope to bring you next week about a lady in Ireland who is copping some legal threats over her activities concerning the movie Vaxxed, the Andrew Wakefield movie that I'm sort of semi-looking forward to seeing at some stage or other. Anyway, more about that at the end of the show. Now, during the week, I asked some of my reporters on the Skeptic Zone what I should run downstairs and eat this week. And they said a ham sandwich, root beer and hot dog, and a lollipop. So, now it's time for me to run downstairs, have a ham sandwich, a root beer and a hot dog, and a lollipop. While I'm trying to enjoy all those, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
It's the Raw Skeptic Report with Heidi Robertson.
Hello everyone, Heidi Robertson here, coming to you from the lovely Northern Rivers in New South Wales. Chef Pete Evans has stirred up controversy yet again this week. I was going to provide a brief background on the pseudo-scientific statements and claims that Pete Evans has made in the past, but there is just so much in his background that fits that criteria that it actually makes up about half of this report. Nevertheless, it's important to recap to get the full picture of what is going on here. So here we go, with thanks to my husband Rob for providing the voice of Pete Evans. Pete Evans is an Australian chef who promotes a GMO-free, grain-free, dairy-free, organic paleo diet. He says,
"If it wouldn't look like food to someone wandering around 40,000 years ago with a loincloth and a spear, it isn't food for you or your baby now. If in doubt, it's hard to go wrong with Mother Nature."
Yep, it is hard to go wrong with earthquakes and tsunamis, droughts, tornadoes, death adders, eastern brown snakes, tetanus, hemlock, castor bean plants and eye-eating amoeba. The naturalistic fallacy generally neglects to mention that Mother Nature does not always have our best interests at heart. I'm also not sure our ancestors walking around 40,000 years ago would have come across Pete's delicious paleo choc caramel slice on their travels, but never mind about those pesky details. Pete is the author of a number of cookbooks, a self-described motivational speaker, and a television personality, having appeared on several cooking-related shows. He is an ambassador for the Mind Foundation, that's MINDD, which has been endorsed by the Australian Vaccination Skeptics Network. The Mind Foundation echoes Pete's claims that diet can treat and prevent a range of health conditions including allergies, anxiety, arthritis, asthma, ADHD, cancer, dementia, depression and more. And they advocate chelation for autistic kids, despite the lack of evidence for its use in autism and its potentially fatal consequences. Last year, Pete lost an ambassadorship with popular salad chain Sumo Salad. Sumo Salad said this had nothing to do with Pete's co-authored book, Bubba Yum Yum, which included a bone broth substitute for formula that contained potentially deadly levels of vitamin A for babies. The publisher pulled out after widespread criticism by health professionals, which Pete subsequently ignored, going ahead with self-publication. He's also the winner of the 2015 Australian Skeptics Bent Spoon Award, which recognises the perpetrator of the most preposterous piece of paranormal or pseudo-scientific piffle. From the Australian Skeptics webpage, Aran Segev, president of Australian Skeptics Inc., said,
"It is not just for his diet that he is a worthy winner, even though it can apparently shrink tumours, reduce diabetes, cure autism, stop asthma and reverse chronic fatigue. There are elements of it that are probably useful, although bone broth for babies is a worry. No, he has also won the award for his support of pseudomedicine, his stand against fluoridation, and his association with rabid anti-vaccinationist Joseph Mercola, the legend as Evans calls him."
Pete has also been vocal in his reckons about the dangers of GMOs and has made claims that a diet based on current Australian healthy eating guidelines is responsible for a rise in autism. And you guessed it, paleo can help with autism and just about everything else that ails you. What Pete Evans is not: a dietitian, a GP, an obstetrician gynecologist, a pharmacist, a dermatologist or an oncologist, which is important to remember considering the claims, opinions and advice he shares with his 1.5 million Facebook followers. The only qualification I could find for him was a health coach with qualifications gained from New York's internationally recognised Institute of Integrative Nutrition. He has been the inspiration for the formation of two Facebook pages, one called Blocked by Pete Evans and the other Banned by Pete Evans, with a combined membership of over 10,000 people who've been banned from his page for calling him out on his various claims. Just last week I was banned from his page after asking if he was in favour of maternal immunisation. There have been others also asking that he come out in support of vaccination, and they too have been banned without a response. When questioned by the media in the past on his ban hammer tendencies, Pete said,
"My intent is to create a page where people can feel safe to share their ongoing success stories and not be confused by outside interests with commercial ties to multinational food corporations."
I'm going to go out on a limb and put it out there that the over 10,000 people banned probably aren't all multinational food corporation shills, but I have no evidence to support that statement. I can only speak for myself. I mean, as we all know, I am no shill for big food. My shilling is reserved specifically for big vaccine. Now, to his latest advice on Facebook to his 1.5 million followers from last week. This is his response to someone who asked him what kind of sunscreen he uses.
The silly thing is, people put on normal chemical sunscreen, then lay out in the sun for hours on end, and then think they are safe because they've covered themselves in poisonous chemicals, which is a recipe for disaster, as we are witnessing these days. We need to respect the sun, but not hide from it either, as it is so beneficial for us, but use common sense. The goal is always never burn yourself.
Yes, of course it's silly to put sunscreen on and then think you are totally protected if you lie in the sun for hours. Yes, we should respect the sun. It is beneficial for us, and no, of course we should not burn. However, you'll note the inflammatory description of people, quote, covering themselves in poisonous chemicals, end quote. So what does Pete do? He's a keen surfer and spends quite a bit of time out in the sun. Well, he replied that he generally does not use any sun protection as he
keeps a year-round tan
and doesn't stay out for
super long periods in the sun.
He says when he is in the sun for longer periods of time, he uses a product called Surf Mud, which is not registered with the TGA. So, is it correct that a tan protects you from sun damage, as Pete suggests? Well, according to oncologist Ian Olver, who was quoted in an article on abc.net.au, quote, in most cases, no. A tan can offer very limited protection, but no more than SPF 4, the lowest sunscreen rating, depending on your skin type. A tan does not protect from DNA damage, which can lead to skin cancer, end quote. Pete has also repeatedly said that we have an epidemic of vitamin D deficiency in Australia, which Dr Olver also says is a myth. Dr Olver says that people who do cover up and use sunscreen will, in most cases, still get enough incidental sunlight for good health. And what of Pete's comments about the poisonous chemicals in our sunscreens? Evans wasn't specific about which chemicals he was concerned about, but as the ABC article states, some people are concerned about the use of nanoparticles in sunscreen, which have been used in sunscreens in Australia since the 1990s. These people believe that the nanoparticles penetrate the skin and have a toxic effect. One commenter on Pete's Facebook post wrongly claimed It takes 20 seconds for sunscreen once applied to enter your bloodstream. Surprise, surprise, that commenter, when I gave him some evidence to prove otherwise, revealed that he sold a range of products including a non-toxic sunscreen. Pete doesn't seem to mind his fans shilling all over his page, as long as they are agreeing with him. In 2013, the TGA, which regulates sunscreens sold in Australia, conducted a literature review and came to the conclusion that nano-sized titanium dioxide and zinc oxide particles do not penetrate the underlying layers of skin, and that on current evidence, neither are likely to cause harm when used as ingredients in sunscreens. The Cancer Council of Australia agrees with the assessment, but says it will continue to monitor new studies. After his sunscreen comments, Pete was asked to appear on a couple of radio stations where he defended his comments. Dr Brad McKay rang in to one of these shows to speak some sense, but Paleo Pete doubled down.
Major issue.
Well, we've had a phone call, Pete, from Dr Brad McKay. He's given us a call. But, Dad, Doc, do you want to get involved with this?
Yeah, sure. No, I was just listening to what Pete was saying, and I've got a few issues. But yeah, one is that we don't have any evidence that the sunscreens that we use are actually toxic, and I think calling it poisonous chemicals isn't really doing it justice. Also, the sunscreen that Pete was sort of like talking about online isn't actually TGA approved. So there's no actual indication that it works. And even the website says that we can't guarantee that this is protective against getting skin cancer. So there are some reasons here. We do have a lot of safety checks and balances, and we make sure that sunscreen does work effectively. And yeah, New Zealand and Australia do compete for the countries that have the worst rates of melanoma and non-melanoma skin cancers. So we need to be encouraging people to use therapies that actually work and do protect them from getting skin cancer. I'm a little bit sick of cutting skin cancers out from people's heads and ears and backs. So it is a big issue in Australia.
Yeah, I think all cancers and skin cancers especially are a huge issue for us. And what I'm saying as well is we need to respect the sun. You know, as studies show, we should not go out there and burn ourselves.
Yes.
Which is a sort of an Aussie sort of thing. It's just like, you know, how many beers can you have on a Friday night?
Yep.
It's sort of in our culture, you know, people want to go out.
We've actually turned around the rates of melanoma as well in Australia. The rates of skin cancer are actually coming down when it comes to melanoma, and that's because we're putting out good information and educating people to use sunscreen when they're outside.
So do you believe sunscreen's the only answer, or do you think you can respect the sun and get a healthy dose of vitamin D from the sun, which, as a doctor, you'd know that we're vitamin D deficient as a population. So do you believe that we can have a healthy relationship with the sun, potentially?
I totally believe that we need to respect the sun, yes. And, yeah, we do recommend for people to go out early in the morning or late in the afternoon, and if they're not wearing sunscreen for 5 or 10 minutes, then that's fine when it's in summer. But yeah, if you're out for a while, or even if you're doing the shopping on an overcast day, then yeah, you can still be incredibly burnt. And I think you're very fortunate, Pete. You've got a good sort of skin tanning situation there. A lot of people don't have that. A lot of people have a lot more fair in Australia. And so yeah, we can't talk across the board and recommend what you're saying is right for you. That's fine, but yeah, there are a lot of people that don't have the same skin colouring.
On July the 13th, 2016, Rebel Wiley from the website KidSpot had an article published about Pete's latest comments. I'll read some out here. It's titled, "Pete Evans is at it again. Now he's a maternal health expert." Quote, "It's been a big week for Paleo Pete. First, the celebrity chef took on the burning Aussie sun with his claims that sunscreen was not only unnecessary, but in fact dangerous, claims which saw him severely reprimanded by both the Australian Medical Association and the Cancer Council, amongst others." End quote. There was widespread backlash on Twitter and Facebook for his comments, with one other Facebook page, the Melanoma Man, asking people to please post photos of their melanoma scars in response to Pete's irresponsible comments. Meanwhile, satire page The Shovel published an article titled, Pete Evans launches new cookbook, 100 Simple Conspiracy Theories You Can Create at Home. Quote, featuring age-old classics like cavemen were the undisputed experts on nutrition and grains are scary, the book also introduces some great new conspiracies that can feed the whole family. The delicious wearing sunscreen is bad for you theory, for example, can be quickly thrown together with hardly any thought at all. Evans said the recipes used common ingredients that most of his fans would have on hand at home. You won't need any messy science or hard-to-find evidence, just toxin-free, pure bullshit, he said. End quote. So what of his comments on veganism for pregnant mums? Pete's advice here is that firstly, meat is needed. Now, he may be right that for some vegetarian or vegan women, they would benefit from eating meat whilst planning and perhaps during pregnancy. Dietitians recommend that if a mum-to-be is vegetarian or vegan and wishes to remain so during pregnancy, that she be closely monitored. It is certainly doable for many women, but should be done in consultation with their doctor and or dietitian. In other words, it depends on the woman, it depends on her existing history and diet, existing medical conditions, any nutritional deficiencies she currently has, and so on. It's not for a chef to make such a sweeping statement on the maternal needs of all women. Perhaps more troubling is Pete's strong inference that prenatal supplements are unnecessary. From the same Facebook post of his,
what about prenatal vitamins? You probably don't want to get me started on this one.
Followed by him getting started on that one.
In short, filled with synthetic and inorganic, compromising, if not toxic, elements and chemicals. Anything but something geared towards healthy women or babies. Why not get yourself prenatal formula from real food instead?
Why not indeed? Well, seeing as adequate folate intake helps to prevent birth defects in the baby, such as spina bifida, this recommendation by Pete might benefit from a second opinion by a doctor. More from the KidSpot article. Quote, on the subject of maternal health, for which Pete has no qualifications, he offered up a diatribe where the expert opinion he mostly refers to is himself.
Every so often, the question comes along as to whether it's okay to be paleo during pregnancy and breastfeeding. Of course, one obvious answer to that question is the fact that humans ate a diet based on principles not dissimilar to what the Paleo Way 10-week and maintenance program is promoting.
And
if you have any trepidation about vitamin A toxicity, I recommend that you carefully read my extended and well-referenced report on the subject.
Oh, and
I am currently recommending that pregnant women stick to wild-caught fish from either cleaner Nordic waters, inland landlocked lakes and streams, or more pristine sources from the Southern Hemisphere.
Then there is...
Readers here may want to refer back to the article I wrote about autoimmunity.
And
I discuss this subject in great depth in my book, Primal Body, Primal Mind.
And this.
What I suggest is that you go and read/reread the article I wrote for the Paleo Way members site on supplementation.
Oh, hang on. Here is one recommendation to seek professional advice.
Since there is literally a zero human dietary requirement for grains, legumes, dairy products, sugar or starch of any kind, a grain-free/dairy-free/low sugar/starch diet during pregnancy is not inherently at all problematic. In fact, it can be highly beneficial. I would, however, work closely with qualified healthcare provider to make a more gradual step towards any changes you are making if you happen to be pregnant.
Wait, as you were. He qualified it with this.
But the dietary recommendations we offer are ultimately the healthiest approach you could possibly take for yourself and your baby.
So it probably doesn't count. But there was this one too, wrapped up in his own recommendations, but still.
For those having hypoglycemia/reactive hypoglycemia, supplemental L-glutamine powder may be helpful towards minimising low blood sugar symptoms during this time, while transitioning to a more even-burning and reliable fat-based metabolism. Please consult with your trusted healthcare provider to be sure this is right for you.
3,864 words in that Facebook post. 6 referrals back to himself, a chef, as an authority on pregnancy, health, and only 2 recommendations to seek professional medical opinion, which he qualifies both times with his own recommendations. End quote. So, there you have it. Pete's opinions and recommendations thus far. His food looks absolutely delicious, and I'd be happy to follow his advice on how best to cook a steak. What I wouldn't be happy to do personally is to take his advice on GMOs, water fluoridation, pregnancy vitamins, sunscreen, or anything else that actually matters. This has been Heidi Robertson from the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. You can find us on Twitter at NRVaxSupporters, that's VAX, or on Facebook. And you can say hi to me at my personal Twitter account at Heidi Howdy. Till next time, I'm off to slip, slop, slap with my Cancer Council sunscreen, go for a walk in the sun, and then rehydrate with fluoridated water.
Australian Skeptics National Convention 2016 will be hosted in Melbourne at the University of Melbourne from the 25th to the 27th of November, with the annual dinner being held at Melbourne Zoo on the evening of the 26th of November. Early bird ticket sales are online at the convention website convention.skeptics.com.au, and if you get an early bird ticket, you'll receive a discount and be able to reserve seats close to the stage. We can confirm that speakers for the convention will include Lawrence Krauss, Edzard Ernst, Harriet Hall, Michael Marshall, Katie Mack, and Mel Thompson, with many more great speakers to be announced soon. Nicholas J. Johnson is our MC for the annual dinner. Information about our speakers is available from the convention website. So that's convention.skeptics.com.au. Homeopathic vaccination. Once again, we report on this concentrated nonsense, which is homeopathy, and in its most dangerous form, which is fake vaccination. What's the harm in homeopathy? What possible harm could placebo sugar pills do? This report has just come to light. From the Courier Mail, dated the 23rd of July 2016, by Rose Brennan. Brisbane homeopath Sienna Karuna selling vaccinations and boosters made from refined sugar. As an aside, I thought that was the whole idea of homeopathy, but it's good that the media are catching on. We read on. A Brisbane woman selling homeopathic vaccinations or boosters for diseases including whooping cough, polio, meningococcal and malaria has been found to be selling nothing but refined sugar. Homeopath Sienna Karuna markets her, quote, homeopathic medicines, end quote, on Facebook and online, and sells them as vaccination alternatives for overseas travellers, adults, children, and even newborn babies for serious diseases such as whooping cough and measles. The Courier Mail obtained Ms. Karuna's vaccination and booster pill use for adults travelling to Morocco, Egypt and Europe from her homeopathy at home business. Expert pharmacist at Queensland University of Technology tested them, revealing them to be sugar. Health professionals have slammed her as grossly misleading and dangerous. This week, a post on the Facebook page claimed to have sold, quote, homeopathic prophylaxis medicines, end quote, for Zika virus to a man in Melbourne who was to travel to Southeast Asia. There is no reputable treatment for Zika on the market. And another comment here, I'm not surprised. Many homeopaths are of the opinion, of course, that all these things work. So why wouldn't they prescribe their homeopathic concoctions for any and all diseases? They think they work. We read on. The business has advertised on Facebook treatments for herpes and preventative medications for whooping cough in pregnant women and whooping cough and rotavirus for babies. Australian Medical Association of Queensland President Dr Chris Zappola slammed the sale of sugar products and called for an investigation by the Health Ombudsman. Quote, I actually think this is so unconscionable. If it's done knowingly, then that is tragic in the extreme, end quote. Dr Zappola said, quote, if it's done unknowingly, then the ignorance and lack of care about the quality that you're providing to your patients is equally concerning, and I would have thought this should go before the Health Ombudsman. Not only is this dangerous and factually incorrect, but it's a money rip-off. It is crazy and it is very dangerous, end quote. Here's another aside. We totally agree. The Skeptical Outlook has always agreed with that previous statement. And this could possibly open a huge can of homeopathic worms, as either people are selling sugar pills knowing they don't do anything, which is very wrong and dangerous, or they're simply ignorant as to reality. The products obtained by the courier mail cost more than $250 and were labelled for the diseases they claimed to afford protection against, including whooping cough, polio, meningococcal and malaria. The paperwork acknowledges the, quote, pill use, quote, are made of sucrose, but says they've been, quote, medicated with medical-grade homeopathic medicines, end quote, sourced from a Melbourne laboratory and prepared by Ms. Karuna. QUT's head of clinical sciences, Professor Lisa Neeson, said in light of their findings, the matter will be referred to the Therapeutics Goods Administration. Quote, it's dangerous for punters out there who don't know any better and are vulnerable. There are people swayed by pseudoscience, and it puts them at risk, end quote, Professor Neeson said. A report by Ms. Neeson's colleague, Dr. Esther Lau, concluded, quote, from these preliminary results, there is nothing to suggest the vaccines are different from sucrose. These vaccines would be useless at guarding against the diseases on the labels, and there is no biologically plausible explanation as to how these vaccinations could possibly work. It is frightening to think that these products are on the market and that they are being sold as vaccines, end quote, the report said. Health Minister Cameron Dick slammed the practice as endangering lives and stressed that, quote, there are no alternatives to vaccines, end quote. Quote, vaccination is a critically important public health strategy which protects children from potentially deadly diseases, but it is only safe and effective when conventional vaccines are used, end quote, he said. Quote, there are no alternatives to vaccines, and we don't need them because we know vaccines work. Anyone offering these alternative products is not only deceiving the community, they are endangering lives, end quote. Mr. Dick said any parent with vaccine concerns should speak to their GP. Quote, families should not be tricked into thinking they are protecting themselves and their children by using these products. I strongly urge any parents or individuals with questions or concerns about vaccinations on offer to speak with their GP or immunisation provider, end quote, he said. When contacted by the courier mail, Ms. Karuna said that there was, quote, a lot of field evidence, a lot of clinical evidence, end quote, on homeopathic medicines working, including in Cuba. Quote, it's a funny thing with homeopathy because it's almost like you can see the results from the medicine, but scientists don't understand the mechanism of the action, end quote, she said. Quote, that doesn't mean that it doesn't work, it's just that we don't know how it works. I'm sure in 10 years, 20 years' time, we will find that there is a evidence base for it. It's just, it hasn't been discovered. Homeopathy is such a simple medicine, make homeopathic medicine at home. It's not rocket science, end quote. Another comment from me. This has been the cry of the woo crowd and people like the creationists and the UFO believers and so many others, that any day now or soon or just wait, science will verify what our particular belief system is. I remember hearing this in the 1970s when it came to the creationists. They were saying it's only a matter of time. More and more scientists are now turning into supporting creationism. I've heard it for so many years now with things like homeopathy and this whole chestnut. Science will catch up to what we believe. People who really think something works think that science will eventually catch up with their opinion. We read on. Miss Karuna said that the Zika remedy she is selling was not a vaccine, but a medicine that can treat symptoms similar to Zika. Homeopathic medicine has been repeatedly discredited by Australian health authorities. After a thorough review of research papers, the National Health and Medical Research Council announced in 2015 that there is, quote, no good quality evidence to support the claim that homeopathy is effective in treating health conditions, end quote. Now I'd like to refer to a newspaper item dated the 23rd of August 2002 in the Daily Telegraph newspaper, dailytelegraph.com.au, by Sue Dunleavy. A fake meningococcal vaccine has been banned as health authorities warn consumers against relying on homeopathic remedies. The Therapeutic Goods Administration issued the ban after the Daily Telegraph drew its attention to homeopaths in Sydney and Newcastle selling the bogus vaccines. Homeopaths and health authorities said that they are alarmed that people may have relied on the product to protect them against meningococcal disease, which has killed 24 people this year. And indeed, if we look at the list of winners of the Australian Skeptics Bent Spoon Award for the year 2002, it was won by Gentle Heal Proprietary Limited for selling fake homeopathic vaccines. And from 2002, a report on the Network 10 nightly news featuring comments from longtime Australian skeptic Barry Williams.
A warning to consumers over fake meningococcal vaccines. Medical authorities have banned the homeopathic remedies, saying they'll have no effect in preventing the deadly disease.
It promises much more than it could possibly deliver, a deceptive label that has federal health authorities angry and investigating.
And if necessary, we will institute recalls or perhaps even prosecute because we're concerned that these are being supplied outside the Therapeutic Goods Act.
These homeopathic remedies claiming to be vaccines against the deadly meningococcal disease have now been banned. Despite having no proven therapeutic value, desperate and fearful parents have turned to them, even buying them through mail order.
It's understandable that when there's something which has caused a lot of public concern that people will look for answers wherever they can find them, but unfortunately homeopathic vaccines are no answer to this problem.
The manufacturer has withdrawn the bogus vaccine from sales, saying the confusion comes from a requirement to include in the name what the source material is.
It's not actually a vaccine as such, it's a homeopathic medicine made from the vaccine. So a lot of practitioners historically have used those medicines in very, very small quantities to treat the effects of the vaccine.
The Australian Skeptic Society has long campaigned against homeopathic remedies, arguing they're little more than distilled water.
They won't do you harm. What they'll do is give you a false sense of security, and you will think that you're protected against something.
Only one officially sanctioned vaccine is available for the Type C strain of the disease. There's currently a worldwide shortage of the proper meningococcal vaccine, but a federal government program will be in place before next year's critical season, vaccinating for free all Australian 1-year-olds, 15-year-olds and 17-year-olds. Those concerned can call a national hotline on 1800 129 068. Eddie Meyer, 10 News.
And if we look at the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission's website, we find, dated the 23rd of December 2014, Court finds Homeopathy Plus vaccine claims misleading. A federal court has found that Homeopathy Plus Proprietary Limited and its director, Ms. Fran Sheffield, engaged in misleading conduct and made false or misleading representations regarding the effectiveness of the whooping cough vaccine and homeopathic remedies as an alternative in breach of the Australian consumer law. And so the story continues. once again, these people are out there promoting the fact that homeopathy can do all these things because they probably, truly and sincerely believe that they can do all these things. And this is giving them the benefit of the doubt. This is putting the best possible angle on it, that these people aren't doing things to make a quick buck knowing that they're selling fake vaccines, but no, they really think these things work. But regardless of their good intentions, of course they don't work, they can't work. The weight of evidence and the laws of physics are against them, and in situations like this, they are putting lives in danger. We will keep you updated as to further developments on this story.
Hey, Heidi.
Oh, hi, Joe.
Hi, Heidi.
Oh, hi, Maynard.
Hi, Maynard.
Oh, hi, Joe.
Nice day in this park, yeah?
Yes, great weather.
Oh, look, a unicorn.
A unicorn? There are no such things as unicorns, silly.
Yes, there are.
No, there isn't.
Hey, ladies, what are you arguing about?
Joe thinks unicorns are real.
They so are.
Let's look this up in the Skeptic's Dictionary.
The what?
How can we do that in this park? There are no computers here.
You ladies probably don't know about the Skeptic's Dictionary app, available now for iPhone, iPad and iPod Touch in the App Store.
Yeah, we do. We've been listening to the Skeptic Zone for years, you know.
Yes, okay. The app lets you access all the great Skeptic's Dictionary articles when you're on the go. Here, let me look up unicorns.
Oh, cool. Heidi, prepare to be proven wrong.
It says here the unicorn is a creature from fables.
Aha!
Actually, I see now that someone just dumped their ice cream cone on that horse's head.
Thanks, Skeptic Dictionary iPhone app.
That's just some guy in his undies.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Good morning. You're hearing a very croaky Maynard here, and I'd probably say I don't think the Skeptic Zone has ever been recorded at 6 a.m, let alone 6 a.m. Perth time. We're just about to leave Perth to head off on the Adelaide leg of the Totally 80s tour. And I thought, well, musicians can be like sports people in that they tend to think if they do something repeatedly, it will bring them good luck or they will ward off bad things happening. And I think I might see if there's any superstitions on tour or ways to behave on tour. Like I myself like to gargle every night. I don't know if that's actually something that's a bit of a superstition or not, but it's a fun thing to do. But I'll be talking to a few people about what they do to try and keep things and ward off bad luck during a tour. Look, we're here in the departure lounge here at Perth, and we're here with John, who is the tour organiser, manager. What's your official title?
Artist liaison.
Oh, right. Oh, artist liaison. That's a tough one because that's a very grey area as to what you have to do. That's everything from potentially walking dogs to overseeing relationship breakups.
That's correct.
And I have been talking about things you do, and you mentioned you are a thespian. Yes. And so did you have a ritual before you went on stage? Was there something that you'd like to do that made you more comfortable before you performed?
I'd usually just spend about half an hour just on my own, just in my own space.
And do you think about the character or what you have to do when you're on stage? And if you don't do that, does everything come undone or not?
Not really, no.
Okay. So it's not really a necessary ritual?
No.
And we're here with one of our dancers as well. Now, dancers being very physical, is there something you feel you've got to do that maybe physically you don't have to do, but you have to do before you go on?
Definitely stretching. That's a big thing because you don't want to hurt yourself on stage or be sore for the rest of the tour. So you've got to take care of your body.
Okay, now what about sporting? You said, were you a sporting person and had a sporting ritual when you played sport?
Yeah, I had a pair of lucky undies when I was younger. They were like my favourite colour and I felt like I would win if I wore them.
And did you ever test that empirically? Did you not wear them one day and lose?
No, I think it's definitely mind over matter. I don't think they were really lucky undies. It was just something that would try to make me feel like I was going to win.
I think it's people's secret. You got lucky undies, John? For anything?
No.
No. Now we have another a dancer here. Who have we got here?
Alison.
Alison. Now, do you have something that you do before you go on that seems a little bit not really rational, but it seems to make you feel better before you perform?
I just shake out the nerves. So I just jump up and down, shake my hands out, and it seems to get rid of the nerves for me.
Now, is this something that's based in any sort of science? Did someone teach this to you, or a dance class? Did someone say, if you do this, this will have this reaction, therefore you'll do a better performance?
Not necessarily, just kind of developed it myself, and it gets me ready to go.
Okay. So we're not just talking shoulders, we're talking it starts in the hands and shoulders and then it all over shaking.
Yep, develops all over, shake everything out, get ready to go on.
Okay. What about psychologically? Is there anything you've got to do, or does that do it for you?
No, that does it for me. Just stay focused and, get ready to go on stage.
Okay. What about other dancers you've seen? Have they got any strange rituals where you go, I don't see how that helps, but it seems to be something they have to do before they perform?
Certain drinks, certain stretches. Oh, okay. That's about it, yeah.
And, of course, dancers are a bit like a sporting thing. You're doing the same thing over and over again. What's the most common injury you get? Everyone's got their own weak spot. Is it an Achilles heel, a hamstring? What's the bit that you tend to worry about?
Mine at the moment is my knee, so that's currently all strapped up, ready to go.
Oh, okay. Did it take a sideward knock, did it?
Yeah, a bit of a bump, but it's okay. It won't stop me.
Well, yeah, yes, because unlike sporting people, or I guess like sporting people, if you're dancing in a show and something hurts, it's best not to show pain on your face.
Exactly. You just work through it and pretend it's not there.
What about post-show? Is there something you do where you go, okay, the show's over now, I can do this?
Post-show, I ice, I relax, I have something sweet to eat.
Like a little, you reward yourself for a job well done?
Yeah, little snack afterwards.
Okay. And touring advice, what's the one thing to stop getting sick on tour? Because there's a few people getting sick here on this tour.
Yeah.
And you, both dancers, you've been great.
Yeah, stay hydrated, make sure you eat, make sure you get enough sleep, look after yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good advice, thank you. The Cub reporter Maynard now over near the tea centre, and at the tea centre at the Virgin Lounge we find Robin Law. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm actually just stealing some tea.
Sorry, this is a crime in progress. Like, a surveillance camera, we've got a surveillance microphone. Actually, I'm going to do the same thing by just getting some... Now, you're going for mint, which I would have thought lemongrass would have been better for your voice.
Well, this is for an upset tummy. So I'm just thinking that this could be a good thing. I do have the honey, which will help with my throat.
Yes, you've had a history of touring and everything, so you should be knowing what to do on tour. But have you got anything that maybe isn't completely rational that you do before a show or while on tour to ward off bad happenings?
I wish I could tell you some crazy story, but I just take 15 minutes before the show to try and clear my head and focus and get some space away from everybody else. However, it is hard when you're sharing.
Well, as we did in Perth last night at the Astor Theatre, we were sharing a corridor.
A corridor, yes, correct.
Yes, a drafty corridor at that too.
That's right.
Yes, and there was a wine presentation going on in the corridor while we were changing. It was interesting, it was surreal. But what about other performers? Is there someone who's done something you've gone, I don't know how that helps your show?
Well, my husband, Jack Housden from the Whitlams, he actually does push-ups before the show.
Is that just to get the blood pumping, is it?
I think perhaps, but also to maybe get a bit more...
Oh, make his guns look a bit better.
Yes. However, I must admit, they're never quite as big as mine. I think my arms are bigger than his.
Oh, right. Okay.
truth is there to claims of risk caused by the treatment of beef cattle with antibiotics? I'm Tamara Robertson, and you're hooked up to the feeding tube.
The Feeding Tube is the web video series that brings you the real facts behind popular food myths. Food woo is the most pervasive pop pseudoscience out there right now, and it desperately needs debunking. Each 3-minute episode is suitable for general audience and is produced by scientists for everyone. The Feeding Tube. Check it out. feedingtube.tv. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Now, as I mentioned at the top of the show, next week I hope to bring you an interview with Fiona O'Leary from Ireland, who's involved with Autistic Rights Together. She has recently received a legal threat from, it seems to be a cinema chain who are probably showing and promoting the movie Vaxxed. Now, if you go to the show notes, I will put a link to this story, which is from a website, A Science Enthusiast, but the story is gaining momentum. It's probably on many websites by now. It says, makers of Vaxxed threaten lawsuit over valid criticism. So, yes, in the show notes, have a look at that. And in the meantime, in the following week, until we can get you the story in full, you may wish to see what assistance you may be able to offer Fiona O'Leary. But yes, go to the site and read the background information, and I think you'll find more information on popular blogs about that. And thank you once again to the people who are signing up via Patreon to become patrons of the Skeptic Zone. That means a lot. The more people who help out the show, the easier it is for me, quite frankly, to keep bringing you the show. And it's just really nice to know people out there are willing to support what the Skeptic Zone is trying to do. Anyway, you can find out about that at skepticzone.tv, where you can also see you can listen via Stitcher, iTunes, and even YouTube. And you can subscribe to the YouTube channel of the Skeptic Zone podcast and get your fresh new episode every week. And also, I think the show is about to be distributed through iHeartRadio. I'm just looking into that at the moment. In fact, I've submitted all the information. I think I'm just waiting for them to get back to me. But once that's up, I'll let you know. And just before I go, don't forget those people in Sydney. There's a Skeptics dinner coming up. Just visit skeptics.com.au for those details. And also, if you visit that website, scroll down to the bottom, you can sign up for the Australian Skeptics newsletter and see what's happening with the Australian Skeptics regularly in your inbox. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for contacts, an archive of all episodes since 2008, and our online store. Please support the Skeptic Zone by following us on Twitter @SkepticZone, liking us on Facebook, and leaving a review on iTunes. You can also show your support by subscribing via PayPal for as little as 99 cents a week. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics Inc. or any other skeptical organisation.